All right, let's dive into one of the wildest documents ever declassified by the US government. It's called the Gateway Process. And yeah, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction. But believe me, the US Army was taking this very seriously.
So the story really kicks off in 2003. That's when the public finally got to see this report from 1983 called Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process. It was kept secret for 20 years, and well, once you see what's inside, you'll totally get why.
And here's the line that just makes you stop and read it again. The report wasn't about, simple focus or relaxation techniques. No, this was a serious look into whether human consciousness could literally escape the bonds of time and space. I mean, wow.
Naturally, this brings up some pretty big questions, right? Like, what is this gateway process? How does it even supposedly work? And maybe the biggest question of all, why in the world was the US military spending time and money looking into things like out-of-body experiences and astral projection? Let's dig in and find out. Okay, so to really wrap our heads around the Army's report, we have to go back to the guy who started it all. His name was Robert Monroe. And his journey into all this weirdness didn't start in some secret government lab. It actually started in the world of radio. So back in the 50s, Monroe was really into this idea called hypnopedia. Learning while you sleep using sound. But then in 1958, during one of his experiments, something totally wild and unexpected happened. He described feeling this strange paralysis, these intense vibrations, and then, boom, he was floating near the ceiling, looking down at his own body. It was terrifying for him, but it was also so profound that it changed his entire life. He ended up starting the Monroe Institute just to figure out what on earth had happened.
And that leads us to the big question, the one Monroe spent the rest of his life trying to answer. How can sound waves possibly affect your consciousness? I know, it sounds a little out there, but his whole method is actually built on a real, documented biological thing.
And here it is. It's called the frequency following response. Basically, your brain has this natural tendency to sync up with rhythms it hears. Just think about how a song can pump you up or calm you down. Monroe figured he could harness that same idea, but with way more precision, to actually steer the brain into very specific states of consciousness.
Now, this is where it gets really clever. See, there was a problem. The brainwave states he was targeting, like the deep meditative ones, delta or theta, operate at frequencies that are super, super low, too low for us to actually hear. So what did he do? He played one audible frequency in one ear and a slightly different one in the other. Your brain hears these two different tones, and trying to make sense of it, it creates a third signal internally, a beat frequency that's the exact difference between the two. It's like a clever hack to trick your brain into hitting that target low frequency.
And the ultimate goal of all this? A state he actually patented called hemi-sync. This is where the two sides of your brain, the left and right hemispheres, which usually do their own thing a little bit, start firing in perfect unison. Same frequency, same amplitude. It's this state of total brain synchronization that almost never happens naturally.
Okay, so we've got this civilian researcher using sound to basically hack consciousness. Now, let's get to the part where the US Army gets involved. We're going to see how they took these incredible claims and tried to anchor them in actual hard science.
This is where Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonnell comes in. It's 1983, and he gets this, fascinating assignment. He's tasked with figuring out if Monroe's gateway process could actually be used for military applications. The big idea? They wanted to know if they could use out-of-body experiences for spying. We're talking about creating, essentially, psychic spies. Now, McDonnell was smart. He knew how unbelievable this all sounded, so he made a point to stay away from any language that sounded mystical or supernatural. Instead, he built his entire case on established science. He pulled from biomedicine, quantum mechanics, theoretical physics, all to create a rational-sounding explanation for a very, very irrational-sounding concept.
His first major point was something called the holographic universe theory. It's this idea that some physicists have kicked around, which suggests the universe isn't just a bunch of separate things floating around. Instead, it's all one massive, interconnected energy field. And in that model, every little piece contains the information of the entire whole, kind of like how a tiny fragment of a hologram can still show the full picture.
His next point came from theoretical physics. It's about something called the Planck distance. You can think of it as the smallest possible measurement in our universe, the point where our current laws of physics kind of just stop. McDonnell's whole theory was built on what might happen if you could go beyond that limit. into a realm where our ideas of time and space just don't apply anymore.
And this is really the heart of his entire hypothesis. He actually theorized that if you used hemi-sync to get your consciousness focused enough, you could essentially blink outside of our normal space-time. You could pop into this sub-Planckian reality, even just for a moment, tap into that universal hologram we talked about, and come back with information from the past, the present, and maybe even the future.
So yeah, that's a pretty mind-bending theory. But how did they actually turn that into a set of instructions? Something a soldier or an agent could actually follow. Let's break down what the process actually looked like.
The process itself starts off pretty simple, actually. First, you're supposed to visualize putting all your worries, all your mental clutter into a kind of lockbox to clear your head. Then you start some deep meditation, sometimes humming a single note to really focus. It's only after you've done that prep work that the hemi-sync audio tracks are played through headphones to start guiding your brainwaves.
According to the report, there were a bunch of potential results from doing this. Things like better problem solving, something they called patterning, which is basically manifesting reality, and even simulated healing. But the big one, the one the military was really interested in, was of course the out-of-body experience. I mean, that was the holy grail for the Army, right? The idea that an operative could leave their body and gather intel from anywhere on the planet instantly. But, to his credit, McDonnell was a good analyst. He was also careful to point out a huge problem. The information that came back was often, well, distorted or jumbled. Not exactly reliable for making life or death decisions. And that brings us to the end of the story. Or maybe not. Because after all the wild theories and practical steps, the declassified document leaves us with one huge, lingering mystery.
Page 25. The whole report is out there for anyone to read, except for that one page. It's just missing.
And that's the question that has spawned 1,000 conspiracy theories online. I mean, if this was all just some wacky thought experiment, why pull one specific page before releasing it to the public? What could possibly be on page 25? Well, there are a few big theories. The most popular one is that page 25 had the real nuts and bolts, the specific instructions, maybe the exact audio frequencies that were considered too dangerous or powerful to just release to everybody. The CIA says they never even got that page in the first place. Then there's a more, let's say, philosophical idea that maybe McDonnell left it out on purpose, like a final challenge to get people to stop reading and start experiencing.
So in the end, what do you think? Was this a real attempt by the U.S. Army to weaponize consciousness? And are the most important secrets still locked away? Or was it just a really elaborate thought experiment, ending with one last puzzle for us to solve? The report gives us a pretty strange map, but it seems the destination is still a total mystery.